Shall we start?
Yes, sir.
Pronouns. Uh, Pronouns. Wherever the art of medicine is loved, there is also a love for humanity. Delightful morning to all. We roll down a carpet of welcome to all the dignitaries, guests, doctors, parents, and of course the well wishers on behalf of Nanda Ayurveda Medical College Hospital. Prayer is aligning ourselves with the purpose of God, hoping for good things to happen all the time. I request Nandini Shri to lead us in the prayer.
ॐ नमामि धन्वन्तरिम् आदिदेवं सुरासुरैर्वन्दितपादपद्मम् लोके जरारुभय मृत्युनाशम् दातारमीशं विविधौषधीनां क्षीराब्धेरुदितं देवं पीतवस्त्रं चतुर्भुजं नमामि धन्वन्तरिं नित्यं नानागदा विशोधनं सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा.
Thank you, Nandini. There is an old saying, education is not an allegation of knowledge, but the formation of character. Growing under the guidance of such a character is an absolute blessing. I would like to call our principal, Dr. M. Kritika, to start the day with her words of wisdom.
Thank you, Rupika. Namaste to all, and a warm welcome to all the participants who have gathered today for this webinar series. I extend my warm welcome to our guest speaker of today's Ayurveda web series, Dr. Vijayanath, who is working as an assistant professor in Department of Rachana Sharira, Government Ayurveda College, Tripunitura, Kerala. A warm welcome, sir. Our management, staff, and students of Nanda Ayurveda Medical College and Hospital are very happy, and we are grateful to have our guest speaker today. The reason is today is Sunday. Usually, Sunday is always considered as a day to relax and to be free from all the official commitments and others also. But Dr. Vijayanath has accepted a request and he is ready to engage our student community through his vast knowledge in Rachana Sharira. I thank you wholeheartedly, sir, for giving your valuable time on this holiday. And I request our student community to make use of this opportunity. As a part of Ayurvandan web series, today we will be having a lecture on bird's eye view on Shaka Marma. And I request all the students and student community to be sincere and committed and towards your Shastra or the learning process, especially Ayurveda. Don't miss any opportunity that's created by God. And I feel that this opportunity is also created by God by bringing the acharyas or the vaidyas, the learned vaidyas, to each and every one of your desktop or screen. So again and again, all these online webinars are aimed at teaching you during this lockdown or this pandemic situation. And really, we are very grateful to all the Vaidyas who are ready to render us this lecture during this time. And I once again thank you, sir, on behalf of our management and staff and students for giving this valuable time. Thank you, sir.
Madam, shall we begin?
Thank you, ma'am. There is no scientific study. So we still have some procedures. So there's no scientific study more vital to man than the study of his own body. Anatomy is a nourishing subject which makes you hunger at every feet. Sharira, Nanda Ayurveda Medical College, Hospital, to introduce our guest speaker.
Good morning, sir. Respected Principal Dr. Kritika ma'am and beloved HOD Dr. Vivek sir and all the dignities, my dear students. This talks of introducing our guest is my privilege, and I am so pleased to be with you, sir, today. And to have a chance to introduce our guest speaker, Dr. Vijaynath sir. He is an assistant professor in Department of Rajana Sharira in Tripunithura Government Ayurveda College, Kerala. He has great understanding of the subject and a great appreciation of what he takes to truly makes the subject. He completed his BAMS in Vaidyaratnam Ayurveda Medical College, Thrissur, and he completed his MD in Rajana Sharira SDM Ayurveda College, Udupi, Karnataka. And he has published many articles and presented many papers in various journals and other field of Ayurveda. And without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. Vijaynath sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so shall we start?
Thank you, sir. It's incredible how the human body is, that it could do so much, that it can go beyond the everydayness of life, that it can be extraordinary and powerful and harbor a spirit of hope and pure will. With due respect, we hand over the virtual stage to our guest speaker, Dr. Vijaynath, sir.
So thank you very much. So let me thank the management and the faculty of Nanda Ayurveda College, especially my batchmate and colleague Dr. Vivek Guni, who gave me an opportunity to deliver a lecture on this topic. So I'll just share the screen. Please enable the screen sharing, madam. Not able to share the screen.
So can you try now, sir?
Okay, now are you able to see the screen?
Yes,
Are
sir.
you able to? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in the show mode, you're able to see it in the show mode. Okay. So this is the topic that has been allotted to me, a bird survey of Shaka Marma. And Marma, as you all know, is a topic that has tested the time. And it is definitely a very astounding and interesting topic as far as the Ayurveda community is concerned. So Marma, as you all know, it is definitely, they are vital points. I don't need to give any introduction to you with regard to the Marma. They are all vital points. And these points are very important clinically. And as you all know, as introductory remark, I would like to tell that the Sharira can be viewed in two aspects. One is the Sukshma Sharira and second is the Sthula Sharira. And the Sthula Sharira definitely is what we can perceive with our Indriyas, especially with our eyes. And if you look into the Sankhya Darshana, there is another Sharira that's called a Karana Sharira. And it is a Karana Sharira that we are subjecting to various modalities and treatment. And the Sukshma Sharira, it can be perceived with our acquired knowledge and with our own what you call intuitions. But as Charakacharya has told, Shariram Paramanu Sankhya, Paramanu Vedena, Aparisankhayam Bahudi. Adibahutvad, Adisauksmyat, Adindriyatvaj. That is a very wonderful statement because Shariram, if you look into the Paramanu, if you look into the minutest aspect, it is aparisankhya, it's innumerable. Now, when we study modern anatomy, not the Rachana Sharira, when we study the modern anatomy, we find that every single thing is counted and has been tabulated. So, you take the number of bones, if you take the number of ligaments in a joint, they have counted all those things. But there are something which is sukshma and which cannot be perceived. So, aparisankhya, adibahutvad, it's so innumerable. So that is why the topics like embryology and physiology, they are changing day by day. Okay. And adindriya tvaja means you cannot, some of them you cannot perceive with your indriyas. But if a Vaidya is that much capable, if he's having a long experience in managing clinical cases, definitely he can. Okay, so these are the two Sharira. And I would like to say that though Marma, when we study Marma in our first year, or when we go into the clinical aspect or the treatment aspect of the Marma, definitely we are taking into consideration the Stula Sharira. But there are many subtle forms or subtle reactions that are taking place in our body, which cannot be perceived by us. So, what is the exact criteria of classification of Marma? The answer is very simple. It is the convenience of Chikitsa or for the convenience of the Vaidya. So one thing, when we start our first year in Ayurveda college, we see that the Sharira has two departments. One is Rachana Sharira and the second is the Kriya Sharira. So Rachana Sharira mainly we call, if you go to a person and tell that I am having Rachana Sharira exam tomorrow, he might not know. But if you go to a person and tell that I am having an anatomy examination, he might know. Even we, the faculty, when we introduce ourselves to a layman or to a society, with I am the Department of Rachana Sharira, no one knows because Ayurveda terminology still are yet to get popular. We say we are in the Department of Anatomy, so almost 50% of the people will know what anatomy is. So anatomy actually involves more of stula things, and that is, it involves more of things which can be perceived with the indriyas, with the structures. Whereas physiology is involves the functional aspect only. And these functional aspects cannot be directly perceived by indriyas, but they are tested in modern medicine using various laboratory procedures. But if we look into the Samhitas, we can find that there is no such bifurcation. In Sharirasthana, they have actually mentioned the Sukshma Sharira, the Stula Sharira, and also the functional, the micro, macro anatomy, everything together. But for the convenience of learning and to make the teaching process simple, we have bifurcated the Sharira into two, that is Rachana and Kriya Sharira. But as time progresses, as you go into second year, third year, and fourth year, you will definitely understand that what the teacher in the first year taught is very easy. Because starting the Sharira in the first year and explaining to them what is the Panchamahabhuta and what actually is the Dhatu is a real challenging task. Because the student has come with his scientific temper where he knows that everything is made up of an atom and atoms joined together to form molecules. But you cannot exactly directly change him into the Panchamahabhuta mode. So that's not easy. So here, when it comes to the Marma, the classification of Marma is for the convenience of the Chikitsa and the Vaidya. And the Vaidya definitely should have what you call a combined knowledge on the Stula and Sukshma Sharira to approach a case or to approach the management of Marma. Okay, so now when we study Marma Sharira, after we will go through the basic of what happens first is that we define Marma, then we go to the names of the individual Marma, then we go to the Abhigada Lakshana of each Marma. Okay, and in between that, along with that, we study the classification of Marma. And your teacher will also add some anatomical points to that. He will correlate, he or she will correlate, the teacher will correlate that Marma with the anatomical structure. Of course, that is the way it has to go because we need to integrate our knowledge for the benefit of the society and for the benefit of the patient. But what really, as an introductory remark, I would like to make that correlating Burma with structures of modern anatomy or in modern medicine might not be rational in many circumstances. We need to know there is a Burma in a point, and we need to know what are the anatomical structures. That is definitely a basic amity. But because Burma injuries were not managed merely on the basis of anatomy, but they were managed on these criteria. One, the type of injury. Second is the site of injury. Third is the extent of penetration. And fourth is the poisonous substances coated on weapons and armory, which prevented the wound healing process. So we all know that marma are vital points, and injury to marma usually occurred in ancient times because the science of the study was written almost 5,000 years ago. And Susruta Acharya and Ashtanga, in the coming slide, I have detailed that, have given details of 107 marmas. So Susura was a surgeon, so he was more interested in the Pratyaksha Pramana and the Pratyaksha form of the marmas. But the marma were written, as you all know, to combat the emergencies in the warfare, and also if some other injury occurred to a person during long travel and all. Okay, but mainly during the warfare. So the type of injury, piercing and blunt injury will be. If it's a piercing injury, it might enter from the anterior aspect and go into the posterior aspect. But if it is a blunt injury, it may cause a severe wound or an injury on the one side. It may be on the palmar aspect. It may not extend to dorsal aspect. Second is the site of injury. And third is an extent of penetration. That is very important. So that is given actually by the pramana of the marma. And the fourth is the poisonous substances coated on weapons, which prevented the wound healing process. And in such conditions, the experience and the knowledge and the skill of the Vaidya was definitely put to test. But still, from our point of view, from the academic point of view, we need to know the anatomical structures involved in the formation of a marma. Okay, and with regard to the number of marma, I'm coming to a different point. You all know that Saptotara Marmasaram, there are 107 marmas in the Shari that causes Susura and Bhagavata. These marmas are explained as a separate chapter in Susura Samhita and Ashtanga, as you all know. And in Susura Samhita, it is detailed in the 6th chapter of the Sharira Sthana, and it is titled Pratyeka Marma Nirdesham Sharira. And in Ashtanga, it is detailed in the 4th chapter of the Sharira Sthana, titled Marma Vibhagam Sharira. And Acharya Charaka has opined that there are 107 marmas, but has grossly classified them into three. He has postulated the Trimarmiya concept. That is, there are three marmas, that is Shiva, Hridaya, and Basti. So here lies the uniqueness of Charaka concept. So there is a difference between the Ashtanga Hridaya and Susruta concept and the Charaka concept. So the thing is that Susruta was a surgeon. There is no doubt in that. And if you look into Ashtanga Hridaya, you know, it's the Sharira Sthana, even if you read, it's a very concise sthana. So in Susura Sharira, the name of the Sharira Sthana, the first chapter is called Sarvabhuta Chinta Sharira. He has explained how life originated in the first chapter. Then in the second chapter, he goes to Shuddha Shukra Shonida Sharira. Shuddha Shukra, Shuddha Artava, and the what you call the treatment modalities what you call to treat that Shuddha Shukla Artava. He has gone in a very methodology, what you call in a methodology, in a correct methodology. But if you take Ashtanga Hridaya Sharira Sthana, the first chapter itself, the first sloka itself, he has defined Garbha. Ashtanga Hridaya is a practical thing, and he has followed the methodology Na Ati Sankshepa Vistara. It is not elaborate, it is not short, but it directly hits the point. But if you study the Charaka Sharira will be studying more in the second year. Charaka was actually a physician. So he was a physician who used to go around. That is the etymology of the word Charaka. And what my teachers have taught me that Charaka would go to a place, go to a palace or a house, and he was a physician who always compromised. So he would ask for a drug A, and if drug A was not there, he would substitute with drug B. So the greatness and uniqueness of Charaka with regard to the marma concept lies that in 26th chapter of the Chikitsa Sana, he has detail about the marma Chikitsa, that is a Trimarmiya Chikitsa. And in the 9th chapter of Siddhisthana, he has mentioned Trimarmiya Siddhi. In both the chapters, he begins with the statement that definitely there are 107 marmas. But the I have, he is telling that I have concised all the 107 marmas into 3. And he has given a very good simile. Just like the rays of sun reach all parts of earth, Dinaganer Vyaptamidam Shariram. The effect of these marmas reach every part of the Sharira. And this is a very famous sloka from the Charana Siddhisthana. Hridaya Murdini Basto Cha Mridam Prana Pratishtita. Tasmat Tesham Sadayatnam Purvita Pratipadi. So the prana lies in 3 places, that is Hridaya, Murda, and Basti. So these parts should be properly cared for. And here, what I am telling before getting into the individual marma, what I want to convey before getting into individual marma is that marma, don't take marma as a mere anatomical entity, because even your wrong food or your wrong regimes or your wrong ergonomics. Now, ergonomics is a very new branch, emerging branch of medicine. Means in a workplace, you should keep your laptop or your instruments or your posture of sitting, all should be very correct. Or that wrong posture or the wrong work habit will lead to a disease. That is why software engineers, they have frequent pain in the neck, or they have a pain in the wrist joint, because they have sitting in front of the computer, not in the wrong way, and they're not following any postural what you call discipline. So here Charaka is again telling in that chapter itself, he has mentioned about Shirodoka, Patantraka, Patanaka, all those diseases he is telling, and Hridaya Manmadikata. And so that is where we should, that concept we should keep in our mind, especially from the current scenario. It is not because simply marma are just simple vital points and it is only applicable for emergency care. It's not like that. We have to have a broader concept. Okay. Now, as you all know, the definition of marma is marmani, mamsa sira, snayu, asti, sandhi, sannipata, teshu swabhavata, eva visheshena, prana tishtanti, tasman, marma, so abhihida, samskan, bhavan, apatyinti. So here he is told that though marma are meeting points of mamsa, sira, snayu, asti, and sandhi. Okay, they are meeting points of mamsa, sira, sandhi, and asti. But certain marmas and certain points will have a predominance of one among these. So that is why they are classified as mamsa marma, and one is classified as sira marma, and like that. The same concept is there in the Panchamahabhuta also. You are taking a stone in your hand. Our Ayurvedic theory tells us that, or teaches us that, every being on the earth, or every single thing in the universe, living or non-living, is made up of Panchamahabhuta. Now you are taking a stone in the hand. The stone has all the 5 elements, Panchamahabhutas, in it. But the Parthiva Amsha is more in the stone. You are taking a glass of water to drink. Now water, it has all the 5 Panchamahabhutas. But the Jaliya Amsha, or the Jala Mahabhuta, is predominant in water. Similar is the case for marma, as far as the structure and as far as the Panchamahabhuta constitution is concerned. Okay, now like that. Now let me get into the topic now. Now Sakti Marmani and in the Susanam Sharirasthana, they have told this Shipra, Talahrdaya, Kurcha, Kurchashira, Gulfa, Indrabasti, Janu, Urvi, Lohitakshani, Vitapam Cheti, Eden, Sakti Vyakyata. Similarly, in the Bahu, they have told this. And this is these are the names of the Shaka Marma, the 11 marmas. Shipra is there for both upper and lower limb. Talahrdaya is there. Kurcha is there. Kurchashira is there. Okay, there are 11 names. Okay, Gulfa is there. And homologous to Gulfa, we have the Manipanta. Okay, and Indrabasti is there. And homologous to Janu, we have the Purpara in the upper limb. And Ani is there in both limbs. Urvi for the lower limb, and Bahvi. And certain scholars, they still use the term Urvi for upper limb also. But most of the others, they have used the term Bahvi. And Lohitaksha is there. Vitapa in the lower limb, and Taksha there and the upper limb. So I have given those names in the yellow, which are different. The names are different in the lower limb and the upper limb, but the number it is same. Okay, 11 marmas. Okay, and now moving into the individual marmas. The first marma actually is the Shipra marma. So the Shipra marma in the Susura Sambraya it is given. Tatra Padasya Angushta Angulyor Madhya Shipram Nama marma Tatra Vidyasya Akshepakena Maran. So Acharya has mentioned marma from the distal to the proximal end. Okay, meaning from the end of the limb and it moving towards the trunk. So this is the first marma. Shipra means fast, and this is located between the great toe and the second toe of the foot. And in the upper limb, it is located between the thumb and the index finger, the web space between the thumb and the index finger. And Panchavita classification is that it's a Shaka Marma. It is a Snayu Marma. Oh, that is what I was telling in the introductory remark. Snayu Marma means there is only Snayu in that portion. That is not the way you should understand, especially if you are a first year student. There is a Snayu, there is a Mamsa, there is a Sira, and there is a Sandhi. In all marma, it is all these things are involved, but there is a predominance of the snayu. Now, one concept is there in the Malayalam textbook of Ashtanga Hridaya, and it's the Malayalam text is actually written by P.M. Govindan Vaidya, which we studied in our UG classes. There, he has mentioned that he has given for one or two classifications, he has given a special what you call interpretation. So he has told that in Asti Marma and Sandhi Marma, maybe directly it is involved with the Asti and Sandhi. But in Mamsa Marma, what Govindamaitya has told is that in Malayalam, he has told is that we'll come to Indravasti and all, there is a heavy covering of Mamsa for that Marma. For the vital point, actually, there is a covering of Mamsa. Only when that Mamsa part gets injured deeply, then the underlying structure will get affected. Okay. Similar is also for the Snayu Marma. That is the concept of a Vaidya. See, Ayurveda is a personalized medicine. Now, I am teaching you one concept. Tomorrow, you might hear another class and another teacher will tell you a different concept. But that concept will be more acceptable to you. So, it is up to you to accept because no, you cannot, it is not able, it is not easy, and we can never standardize all these terminologies. But because it involves both the structural and functional aspects. So this is a Snayu Marma and Kalandra Pranahara Marma, and death occurs due to Akshepa. And Ashtanga Hridaya, it is told that Akshepaga is actually a Vada Vyadhi, and death will occur due to Vada Vyadhi. Pramana is Ardhangula and number is 4. Now, this is actually the location of the Marma. And here comes another point which has been debated in number of marma sharira, that is the pramana of the marma. Now, in pramana sharira, you know there are two pramanas. One is the Anguli pramana and second is the Anjali pramana. Anguli pramana refers to the linear measurement, that is the length, height, width, circumference, all those comes under Anguli pramana. Anjali pramana is actually a volumetric analysis. Okay. It speaks in terms of Anjali, that is a volume. So here Acharya has just mentioned pramana and he has gone through that. So now the debate is pramana the length, the width, or the depth of the marma? So there are many schools of marma. The Tamil marma is different. It is different from the Kalari marma in Kerala. Though there are similar points in Ayurveda marma, Kalari marma, and Tamil marma. If you ask a marma practitioner, especially Kalari marma practitioner or Tamil marma practitioner, he will tell Anguli or Angula is the depth of the marma. But many Ayurveda scholars still believe that you have to consider the length, the width, and the depth as Angula pramana. So that is still a very what you call debated topic. But for your from the first year point of view, you just understand that it is that location and it has to be, or you consider all the three factors as Angula, as a pramana. Okay. So here it is the region of marma, is the web space between the first and second metatarsal bone, that is the first big toe and the second toe, and the muscles are arranged as layers in the foot. And there are a number of intertarsal ligaments which lead to a classification of Shipra as a Snayu Marma. And an injury will lead to damage of plantar digital vessels and nerves in the leg. And in the hand, there are 20 intrinsic muscles. By dissection, you will learn all those 20 intrinsic. They are very short. And because of their short, small size, they have classified, I mean, Susura has classified Shipra as Snayu Marma. And thumb is definitely the master finger. And it's a very important finger. You have heard the story of Ekalavya. Once Eklavya was asked to cut his thumb and give it as a Guru Dakshina. The first web space is given more importance than others. That is why the first web space or the space near to a thumb is given more importance than others. And an injury will lead to the damage of the underlying quick of the radial artery and the median nerve. And Acharya Susruta has mentioned that this marma can sometimes turn into Satyaprana. Okay. Now, Akshepa is one among the Vadavyadis mentioned in Susruta and mentioned by Susruta and Vakpata. In Akshepa, the Vayu in the Vadavyadi Nidana, that is the first chapter in the Nidana Sthana of Susruta Samhita. Vadavyadi Nidana. The Vayu entering the Dhamani will cause severe spasm and conversions in the individual. More of that should be frequent. So Dalhana has interpreted the Dhamani as Nadi, which possibly indicates the involvement of nervous system in the Vyadi. Now, here is one thing which I would like to highlight. In this marma, in most of the descriptions, they have gone for the anterior aspect only. Okay. So they have told it is they are only in the palmar aspect. But in some other marmas, the dorsal aspect should also be considered. That is what the scholars opine. So that we will see in the coming slides. And which involve the involvement of nervous system. Coming back to this Akshepaka, okay, and this is the what you call a painting by the anatomist Charles Bell. Painting in 18. This condition is called opisthottonos. See, a person is arching like a bow. Okay. Now, the convulsions and spasm caused by an injury due to severe blood loss is closely adherent with the similar sign found in tetanus. Now, this sign of opisthottonos mentioned in tetanus is strikingly similar to Akshepaka. Opisthottonos is a condition, or it is actually a sign. It's not a disease, it's a sign. It takes its origin from two Greek root words, that is opis, meaning behind, and tonos means tension. It's a state of severe hyperextension and spasticity in which an individual's head, neck, and spinal column enter into a complete bridging or arching position. So this is also found in infants having certain brain disorders also. Okay, so this is Akshepa Vata. Now, this condition you cannot commonly encounter in the current clinical practice, even if you ask a modern practitioner. Now, the reason is very simple. So the reason is that in current scenario, the management of sepsis is very much advanced, or the management of wound is very much advanced with the invention of antibiotics and all. Okay, but this science was written years ago. So statistically, and with his experience, Susruta had found that, or he had noted that if an injury occurs in this region, there is a possibility of that injury to transform into a very serious sepsis condition or an infection. Okay, so that is why Akshepaka is actually the details of Akshepaka is very much matching with that of the opisthottonos. And the second marma is the Talahridaya marma. And Talahridaya marma, Madhyamanguli Anupurvena Madhya Padarasya Talahridayam Nama Tatra Rujabir Marana. So it is located in the middle of the sole of the foot and in a straight line drawn from the root of the middle toe. And from the etymology of word means the talabhaga, the Hridaya Bhaga of Pani or Pada. Okay, the Hridaya Bhaga of Pani Tala or Pada Tala is called Talahridaya. Okay, it is located in the middle of the palm in a straight line drawn from the root of the middle finger. And the Panchavidya classification is a Shaka Marma, it is a Mamsa Marma, and it is a Kalandra Pranamaha, results in Ruja, pain, and eventually leads to death. And Pramana, it is Ardhangula and Pramana, and there are 4 Talahridaya Marma. Okay, so one each in the and in the what you call the hand, and one each in the foot. So roughly 4. So this is the location. Okay. Now the Talahridaya Marma. Okay. So the etymology of the word can be assumed that it means a Hridaya or the center of Astataya, and so derived the name Talahridaya, as you all know, and it has to be the center of the palm of foot. It has a covering of skin, fascia, and a thick covering of palmar and plantar aponeurosis. So if an injury occurs to this site, it damages the palmar and plantar aponeurosis, and then the deeply located vessels and nerves get injured. The rationale behind the marma being classified as mamsa marma is due to the thick covering of fascia aponeurosis in the palm and the foot. Even if you take the leanest person, you can see that the inside of the palm and the inside of the foot will be very thick. So if an injury occurs there, definitely after the skin, superficial fascia is there, and then comes the deep fascia, and the aponeurosis, as you all know, are modifications of the deep fascia. And if it still goes deeper, okay, and what happens? It definitely will what you call damage the nerves and muscles that is lying below. Okay. This is the vascular aspect. Okay. Now the signs of marma with the Lakshana are Ruja and Marana. Though Ruja is a common manifestation of all major injuries, in this case it will be severe due to the close adherence of neurovascular network. And any rupture in the superficial palm arch will lead to severe hemorrhage, and a piercing blunt injury will definitely damage the median nerve. This will definitely lead to traumatic shock or the vasovagal shock. Apart from that, the person can also easily get infected with tetanus, which lead to death. It is also significant to know that amputation is advised in Talahridaya Marma Vigata, like Shipra Marma, to prevent further sepsis. Okay, now this is a very famous statement. And after mentioning Shipra and Talahridaya, Sufruta and Vagbada, they both have told Sipreshu Tatra Sataleshu Hateshu Rektam Gachayitva Pavanascha Rujam Karoti. So when an injury occurs, what is first happening? We should know. When you study the Bhagna Nidana Bhagna Chikitsa and all, see, when a blood loss occurs or a hemorrhage occurs, initially what is happening is that initially it is the pitta that is being aggravated. In the initial, that is initial means initial 5 to 10 minutes. But Pavanascha Rujam Karodi is given here. Why it is given so? Now I am going again to the basics of what we learned in the Sharangadhara Samhita. There is a very famous sloka. Pittam Pangu, Kafam Pangu, Pango Maladadava, Vayuna Yatra Niyende, Tatra Gachandi Mekavat. So here what you should understand is that according to that sloka, Pittam Pangu, Pangu means lame, Pitta is lame. It cannot move fast, it cannot move on itself. Kafam Pangu, Kafa is also lame, it cannot move on itself. Pango Maladadava, it means Maladadu are all Pangu. Vayuna Yatra Niyande, Tatra Gachandi Megavat. Just like the wind moves the clouds. Similarly, the Vada moves all those things. It's a Vada that is a decider. That is why in the Tridoshas, the order is Vada, Pitta, Kaba, not Kaba, Pitta, Vada or Pitta, Vada, Kaba. So what happens is that after the second phase, the Vada get aggravates and Evam Vinashu Abhyendi Ki Tatra Vidha Vriksha. Iva Aydhina Pada Nigrtha Mula. And just like using an Aida, you cut the damaged part of a tree and save it. Tasma Tayor Abhihadasya tu Pani Padam Chetavyamashu Manibanda Gulfa Deshe. Now, if the injury is very severe, affecting the Shipra Marma region and Talahridaya region, in the Manibanda or Gulfa Desha, you just cut it off or you ampute it from the region of Manibanda and Gulfa Desha. Now, the same thing Ashtangridaya is also mentioned. Varded Sandhido Gatram, Marmanya Abhido Drudam, Chedana, Sandhi Deshasya, Sankuchita Shirahyada. In the Sandhi Desha, the Sira, one more explanation is given here. Why they are asking to cut in the region of Sandhi is that Sira is Sarvavaha and Sira is Sarva Sharira Vyapi. But in the region of Sandhi, the Sira will have little bit constriction. And so when you cut from the region of the joint, naturally the blood loss will slowly cease off. And see, it was done. One thing to understand that even in a science that was written thousands of years ago, they have suggested and invented the technique of amputation. And Jividam Praninam Tatra Ekte Tishtati. And Jividam Praninam Tatra Rekte. Rekta is a Jivasthana. Dasha Jivita Damani is there, there's a Pranayadana is there, Rakta is one of them. So you have to save the Rakta to save the individual. That is mentioned, especially in the case of Shipra and Kalahridaya. They have asked for amputation if the what infection is severe or the blood loss is severe. Okay, to save the individual from death, or to save him. Okay, now this is one. That is the reason. I mean, in the region of Sandhi, the vessels are a little bit constricted. One more thing you should understand that though in this sloka, Pavanasya Rujam Karodi. So I have asked my own teachers and colleagues about this. So actually, initially in any Abhigada or any Abhigada in which the hemorrhage occurs, definitely Pitta is first initially aggravating. Then only the Vada will aggravate. So that is why first they have asked to do the Shita Kriya to stop the what happens if a wound occurs or something your head goes on to hit on something and it ruptures. What you do, you first apply ice over there. You keep cubes of ice to stop the bleeding. So after that only you go to the other procedures like suture. Okay, so that is this what you call applying ice cube or the Shita Kriya. That is only affecting the initial phase. Okay, not in a severe bleeding, it may not. Suppose the finger gets severed off, it does not apply. So within minutes, all the doshas will aggravate. Okay, and that's a different condition. Okay, and the next marma is the Shipra marma. That is the Kurcha marma, the third marma. Shiprasya uparishtad ubayata. Kurcho nama tatra padasya brahmana repana bhavata. And see, now this is what I was telling when I went through the Kalahridaya and the Shipra marma. The word Kurcha actually means a brush, and the Kurcha marma, Shiprasya uparishtad, it is situated above the Shipra marma, Shiprasya uparishtad, ubayata. Now here comes another controversial, highly debated topic. Ubayata means both sides. So what does the word ubayata means? Is it the left side and the right side, or the anterior and the posterior aspect? So that has been debated in a number of venues, and we are not able to arrive at the conclusion. And there is a marma called Kurcha, Tatra Padasya Brahmana Vepana Bhavati. And if an injury occurs to the Kurcha marma, the Brahmana and Vepana of the Pada will occur. That is, Brahmana means reeling, or you can tell it's a twisted, like just the drop foot is foot drop. You see, the foot gets twisted to one side, and Vepana tremors will happen. Now, coming back to the word Ubeta, in Kalahridaya marma, see in the previous slide, suppose an injury is happening, a piercing injury, an arrow is going through the side, or a bullet is going through the palm of an individual. Definitely, there is a route of entry and route of exit. Now, it will involve both the anterior and the posterior aspect. But if it is a person has actually, he has prevented a stab with this open hand. Okay. The person has come to stab him, and he is what you call, he's with his reflex, naturally he will show it like this. And if in the center of that palm is getting what you call injured, definitely that injury has not gone to the anterior aspect. But any injury that is afflicting the anterior aspect will definitely move, or it will definitely affect the surrounding structures. So to a certain extent, Ubeda has been mentioned in certain marmas because both sides, statistically and clinically, he might have, Susura and Vagbada both have noted that injuries are there both in the anterior and posterior aspect. Okay, but if you take the Kalahridaya marma, on the other side, it is very bony. The dorsal aspect, it is not so fleshy. Only in the palmar aspect, it is fleshy. Okay, so that is why in Kalahridaya and all, they are considering only one side, and when it comes to Kurcha marma, they are considering both the sides. Okay, so Kurcha is actually a brush shape, and this is the location, and this is the location of the dorsal aspect. Okay, and see, and Kurcha marma in the foot can be related to plantar aponeurosis, and a serious injury will cause severe damage to the underlying nerves and muscles. And in the dorsal aspect, you can see the extensor muscles and tendons, extensor muscle tendons that are getting injured. Okay, in the case Kurcha marma, Kurcha actually means a brush. Okay, and one more explanation is that in this thing, what you call, it's a Vaikalyakara marma, and definitely will lead to what you call a deformity. Okay. And next is the Kurcha Shira. As the word suggests, it is a series of the Kurcha or the apex of the brush. So here they have told Gulfa Sandherada Ubayata. Again, the word Ubayata appears here. Gulfa Sandherada means below the Gulfa Sandhi. And Ubayata means on both sides. Kurcha Shira, Tatra, Inja, Shofa. Means if an injury occurs to the Kurcha Shira Marma, Juja pain and Shofa inflammation happens. So once again, just reading to the slide, is located below the Gulfa Sandhi angle joint. That is the Kurcha Shira Marma. And in the hand, it is located below the Manibandha Sandhi. Okay. An injury of this causes Ruja and Shofa. In a homologous way, it is situated below the Manibandha Marma. An injury will lead to severe Ruja pain and Shofa inflammation. And the Panjavida classification is the Shaka Marma. It is again a Snayu Marma, Rujakara Marma, and Pramana, 1 angula. And there are 4. Okay. So consider both aspects in this. And the Kurchashira Marma in hand can be correlated to the apex of the palmar upper neurosis. Kurcha Marma in foot can be correlated to apex of the plantar upper neurosis, and a serious injury will cause severe damage to the underlying, the apex of the palmar and plantar upper neurosis. On the other side, region below the retinaculum from where the extensor tendon emerge, and region below the retinaculum from where the extensor tendons emerge. Now, this sorry. So it is being classified as a Rujakara Marma. So Rujakara Marma, though Panjabha classification, we learn it automatically, but when it comes to the clinical aspect, we should understand that this an injury in this region will result in tendinitis, and most of the injuries below the region of wrist will result in painful hemangiomas. Most of the clinical anatomy text you see, they result in painful hemangiomas, and that is one of the reasons why they have explained as a Rujakara Marma. So Rujakara Marma is that there will be long-standing pain. Okay. Now next Marma is the Gulfa Marma, and here they have told Pada Jankayo Sandane Gulfa. That is the meeting point of the leg and the foot. Pada Jankayo Sandane Gulfa. Tatra Ruja Stabda Padada Kanjadava. It is located in between the Pada, foot, and Janka leg. An injury will cause Ruja pain, Stabda Padada numbness, and Kanjada, that is lame. You will be lame, maybe difficulty in walking if an injury occurs there. And the Panjavida classification, it is a Shaka Marma, it's a Sandhi Marma, and Rujakara, it is Rujakara Marma, and Pramana is 2 angula. Okay, and the number there are 2. So all the bones, ligaments, and tendons which constitute the formation of the ankle joint can be taken into consideration depending on the injury. Now here comes another logical question. You will learn about Gulfa Sandhi. In the classification of Sandhi, you have learned about 8 types of Sandhi: Kora, Ulukana, Samukta, Pratara, Tunna Sevini, Vayasa Tunta, Mandala, Shankavarta Beta. And there we will learn again that Tesha Manibandha Gulfa Janu Purpareshu. And then we will learn about the Sandhi. Now, what is the difference between Gulfa Marma Abhigata and the Gulfa Sandhi Abhigata? Okay, what is the difference is that? The difference is definitely, it is purely clinical, and it has to be ascertained by writing. Because if a Gulfa Sandhi Abhigata, if it is not managed properly, will definitely turn into a Gulfa Marma Abhigata. So the Sandhi, what if suppose it's a small sprain, and if the sprain is not treated properly, definitely it might lead to other clinical manifestations. Okay. Now there is a very hairline fracture of the calcaneus. Now it's not diagnosed properly. It can later lead into necrosis. That is very clearly found in the management of wrist joint, which will detail in the current and next slide. And you have heard of the Achilles tendon, and you will be seeing the Achilles tendon while dissecting. So Achilles tendon region, many anatomies they differ. I mean, Sharira people differ, and they tell that it cannot be included in the Gulfa Marma Abhigata. But still, one thing we should understand is that the Achilles tendon, there is actually a myth and a reality behind it. And you know what the myth is all about. Achilles was a Greek warrior, and his mother was given a boon, just like what Duryodhana was given in Mahabharata. And her mother was told that you dip the entire body of Achilles in the river, and once you pull him out of the river, all the part of his body which is submerged under the water will be so strong. You cannot kill him by afflicting those body parts. So what happened is that Achilles' mother caught him by his ankle and dipped him in the river. So that part of that ankle region did not come in contact with the water of that divine river. And so that was his flaw point. So he was actually killed by an arrow that was shot into this region. Okay, so and that is a myth, and the reality is that you will know the two heads of the gastrocnemius and the soleus, they join together to the calcaneus bone via the Achilles tendon. So if an injury happens in the Achilles and a cut occurs, a partial cut occurs in the Achilles tendon, it is definitely really painful. Okay, and all the tarsal bones are very small, and if you miss one of the fractures in the tarsal bone, it can lead to necrosis and long-standing pain. So that is one of the reasons why Gulfa marma is classified as a Vijayakara marma. Okay, and next is Manibandha marma. Visheshastu Manibandha is homologous marma that is found in the upper limb, and it is given in Susura Sharira. The Manibandha Marmabhigata Lakshana is Kundada. And Kundada is Karasya Agarmanyatvam. That means inability to do activities with the hand. It is Karasya Agarmanyatvam. And homologous to Gulfa marma, Gulfa marma is a Manibandha marma in upper limb. An injury to this marma causes Kundada, means inability to do actions with hands. It's a Shaka marma, Sandhi marma, Rujakara marma. Okay. And 2 angula and number 2. Okay. And the etymology of the word suggests that it is named so because the carpal bones resemble a string of beads. So this area refers to the bones and structures involved in the formation of the wrist joint. Okay, next. Now here comes one point which I found in a textbook called Clinically Oriented Anatomy by Keith L. Moore and Arthur F. Daly. So this is a very simple textbook, at the same time a very informative textbook for any doctors. Okay, you practice Ayurveda anywhere. This is a very simple textbook to follow. And here they have told that the scaphoid bone, fracture of scaphoid. I've just taken that what they call picture from the textbook. I mean, the scaphoid is the frequently fractured carpal bone. It often results from fall of a palm when the hand is abducted, and the fracture occurring across the narrow part base of the scaphoid. Pain occurs primarily on the lateral side of the wrist, especially during dorsiflexion and abduction of the hand. Okay, now comes the point. Initial radiographs of the wrist may not reveal a fracture, and often this injury is misdiagnosed as a severely sprained wrist. Radiographs taken after 14 days later reveal a fracture because of the resorption has occurred there. Okay, that mark will be evident after 14 days in a radiological investigation. And owing to the poor blood supply to the proximal part of the scaphoid, union of fractured bones may take at least 3 months. So avascular necrosis, that is the death of the tissue of the proximal fragment of the scaphoid, pathological death of bone resulting from inadequate blood supply. That's called necrosis. Okay, death of the tissue. That the bone is a connective tissue, you know. So the tissue will die if there is no oxygen and blood supply to that. May occur and produce degenerative joint disease of the wrist. In some cases, it is necessary to fuse the carpal surgically. So the fracture of scaphoid bone, even in the modern medicine, is a highly missed fracture in the orthopedic practice. So that is what they are telling. So it will lead to long-standing pain if it is not fractured properly. And there are very few people who go for a review, because when you have a fall, you have a pain, you go to a doctor, and the doctor takes an X-ray. I'm not telling that every doctor will miss it. That's not the thing. The doctor will suggest for an X-ray, and he will know there is no fracture, it's just a sprain. And so misdiagnosed, the patient will continue to take painkiller for a long time, because he is under the impression that the doctor has ruled out a fracture. But actually there was a fracture, and this is a modern textbook, not an Ayurvedic textbook. They told that this is a misdiagnosed fracture. So that all adds to the evidence of Manibandha being classified as a Yujakara marma. Okay, and one more thing is that This is where I was trying to what I told in the introductory slide. So Manibandha, the word suggests the etymology tells us that it is named so because the carpal bones resemble a string of beads. Here, you know, what Acharya has tried to convey is that this point is critical. It is vital. So you need to manage it properly. So, but when from the current Ayurveda curriculum, what we are looking is that we are searching for modern equivalent for every single Ayurveda concept and terminology. That might not be possible. See, he has very clearly given a caution with regard to that area, and that should be managed properly. That is the message. If not, it can cause all those different. That's Kundada, Karasya, Karmanaka. He has only mentioned a single word to describe the effect of that marma, Kundada. And Dalhana has clarified Karasya, Akarmanaka. So from that, that's a single word, but that word has a broad spectrum. So that is why I was telling in the introductory slide, you cannot make a rational conclusion with a modern interpretation for every marma. But we need to know the modern anatomy to manage those marma vigata. Because this can happen not only in a warfare, it can happen for this scaphoid fracture can happen while a person goes on a walk or a jogging and he falls down. It can happen during a fight. It can happen as a sports injury. So see, so for most of the marma vigata, the what you call the opportunities are very huge. Okay, and this is an another anatomical point called it's pronounced as Detot space. It is named for radiologist Etienne Detot, who lived from 1864 to 1918. Now, this is the space in the wrist bounded by hamate, capitate, tricrutal, and lunate bones. And this is believed to be one of the crucifixion points of Christ, because there were some, especially during the Second World War, you have heard of Nuremberg trials, where people were tortured severely. And in myth, the Christ actually was crucified, and the crucifixion of Christ has been subjected to a number of research thesis papers. And this is a space in the wrist that if you pass a nail to the Detot space, it is told that hemorrhage will not occur, or the blood loss will be very meager, but the pain will be excruciating. So this is you can get many papers on this, on the crucifixion points, and some people believe the center of the palm was one of the crucifixion points where the Lord Christ was nail was drilled to the palm of Christ, and he was hung on the cross. Okay, so this is a very important crucifixion point. It's called the Detot space. It was used for torture in ancient Rome. Okay, so these all justify the what you call add evidence to the Manibandha marma. Okay, and next is the Indrabasti and Parshani Pradi Jankamadye Indrabasti Tatra Shonidakshayana Marana. So here it is located in the Janka Madhya, that is the middle of the leg, in the Parshani Prati, that is the line of heel, and it is a Mamsa Marma. So definitely it has to be on the posterior aspect only in this Marma, because the anterior, it is on the middle of the leg, and the anterior aspect of the middle of the leg is the shaft of tibia, that is the shin, anterior border of the shaft of the tibia. So here they have mentioned you have to take it as a posterior aspect only. An injury to this Marma causes death due to hemorrhage, and in a homologous way it is situated in the middle of the forearm in the upper limb. It is a Shaka Marma, Mamsa Marma, Kalandara Pranahara Marma, Ardangula, and 4 in number. So this is the location, that is the middle of the leg in the line of heel. Okay. A deep injury to the calf muscles may injure the entire vasculature lying below. Now, the calf muscle, that is the gastrocnemius and soleus, are two large muscles, and these two heads, two heads of the gastrocnemius and the soleus, are joined together to the calcaneus via the Achilles tendon. You see the Achilles tendon here in the picture. Okay, they are joined via Achilles tendon, and the muscle soleus is called the peripheral heart. Now, you will have to understand this marma under two aspects, and the first aspect is that if a severe deep injury occurs, what happens is that it can injure the vessels lying below. And apart from that, the soleus is called peripheral heart because, you know, water always flows from a higher level to the lower level. From a well, if you have to take the water, you will have to keep a motor in the well, or you will have to draw it using your hand. So here the soleus, the contractions of the soleus actually aids in what you call pushing the venous blood back. Okay, pushing the venous blood back. Okay, and there are number of veins in the wall. Sorry, number of walls in the veins that prevent the backflow of blood. So if an injury occurs to soleus muscle, see its function is impaired and its function as a peripheral heart will get affected, and this can also lead to the severe varicosity of the veins. So an injury to this region will definitely affect the vasculature in the leg, and in the center of the forearm also is there, and an injury to muscles of the anterior compartment of forearm results in an injury to the anterior introitious artery, which is a branch of the ulnar artery. Now, compared to the leg, from the center of the leg, the center of forearm might not be so thick, but still it is in the young age and all, it is thick due to the abundance of the anterior muscles of the anterior compartment of the forearm. Okay. Next is the Janu Marma, and it is Janga Urvi Sandhane Janu Tatra Ganjata. Now it is located in the Sandhana, that is the joining part of Janga and Uru, that is leg and thigh. And an injury to this marma will cause Ganjata. Now Ganjata, Panguta are all different kind of walking deformities. Okay, that we will learn later. And Panchavida classification is it is a Shaka marma, it is a Sandhi marma, it is a Vaikilyakara marma, and the Pramana is 3 angular, and we have 2 Janu marma. And similar to Janu marma in the upper limb, we have the Purpana marma. So these are the structures involved in the formation of the knee joint. Now, knee joint, as you know, is a very important joint. It is a main weight-bearing joint. Apart from that, it has a number of ligaments, what you call that is surrounding the knee joint. If you properly study the knee joint, you study the radiological aspects of the knee joint, that itself is enough to build a good career, because that much sports injuries are now happening, and most of these sports injuries are now being managed by Ayurveda practitioners in Kerala, because you can do a sports medicine diploma after your BAMS, and for that the primary essential thing is that you should have a good knowledge on anatomy. Okay, so all the structures that are involved in the formation of knee joint is can be considered as what we call Janu Marma. And again, here also the same concept comes into play. Now you will have Janu Sandhi Sandhigata Vada will be there. Post-Ugra Sirsraga you will learn in Vada Vyadi. Now these can be managed conservatively. And suppose a person is having a small fall and he's having his leg is twisted, there may be an edema in the knee, what you call in the knee region. That may be a Janu Sandhya Bigada. That may necessarily not be a Janu Marma Bigada. So a Sandhi being affected and a Marma being affected are 2 things that you need to differentiate clinically. That is the applied aspect which I have to convey to you. And similar to Janu Marma, you have Kurpara Marma. Again, Kurparakya, Kuni. That is the only word is given, and some people even utter it as Kuhuni. And Kuni means, Dalhana has clarified that as Sankuchita Bahumadhi. That is, he cannot extend his arm. It will be partially flexed. His elbow will be partially flexed. And it is again a Shaka Marma, Sandhi Marma, Vaikilyakara Marma, Pramana 3 angular, and number is 2. Here you can take both the anterior and posterior aspect in Janu and also in Purpara. Okay. See. So all the structures involved in the formation of elbow joint are there. You can take into consideration in the Purpara Marma. And see, you have heard these 2 things. Golfer's elbow, that is the medial epicondylitis. That is the medial epicondyle of the humerus is getting is an information. And there's a tennis elbow, and you have heard Sachin Tendulkar getting he was what you call affected with this. So what is causing a tennis elbow and golfer's elbow? It is repeated use of that joint. Okay. So in the case of Sachin Tendulkar, what happened? It was properly managed. So he was able to prolong his career for another 12 or 15 years. But if it was not, there was an initial media news that this is definitely going to end his career. Hope we all know that example. So here, these golfer's elbow and tennis elbow, depending on the extent, can be considered as Janu Marma Abhigada. And if it is initially treated, it is a Janu Sambhaya Abhigada. That is what I would like to convey to you. And next is a Ani Marma, and located 3 Januna Urdham Upayata. Here again the term Upayata comes. Januna Urdha Upayata. Triangulum Ani Tatra Shofabhivruddhi Stabda Saktitacha. Located 3 angula above the Janu is the Ani Marma. In arm, it is located 3 angula above the Purpara Marma. And in injury to this Marma causes Shofabhivruddhi, that is increased inflammation, and Sabda Sakti, that is stiffness or numbness of the thigh. And the Panjavida classification, it is a Shaka Marma, it is a Snayu Marma, it is a Vaikalyakara Marma, Pramana Ardangula, and there are 4 of them. So in the lower limb, see, it is 3 angula above the what you call the Janu Marma. So here we all know that while dissecting, we will see that the tendon of quadriceps is here. So the quadriceps tendon is not a very a small tendon. Actually, the muscles of quadriceps femoris muscle are getting attached to the patella via this. So if an injury happens there, there will be severe pain and inflammation. And similar to this, there is a tendon of biceps brachii in the upper arm. And here also, if a tear or a rupture occurs, there will be severe pain and inflammation. And the sign are given in Stabda Saktita and Shofabhivruddhi. Okay. Shofabhivruddhi means there will be an increased, what you call, Shofa, that is inflammation. Okay. Because all tendinitis will have tenderness and inflammation. Okay. So in this case, Ani Marma, I have seen very few scholars relating it to posterior aspect, because thigh is a very thick structure, and the posterior aspect, we have what you call the hamstring muscles, but it does not correspond to region of hamstring muscles over there, because in the posterior region, there is a, it is just the, what you call the apex of the popliteal fossa. Okay. And next is the Urvi Marma. And Urvi Marma, it is given Uru Madhya Urvi. Uru Madhya Urvi is there. That is located in the middle of the Uru thigh is the Urvi Marma. Uru Madhya means Uru means the thigh. Uru Madhya in the center of thigh. And if an injury occurs, Tatra Shonida Kshaya Sakti Shosha. It is located in the middle of Uru thigh is the Uru Marma. An injury to this Marma will cause Shonida Kshaya, blood loss, and Sakti Shosha, wastage of limb. In homologous way, it is situated in the middle of the arm, and it's called the Bahu. And Panjavida classification is a Shaka Marma, it is a Sida Marma, it's a Vaikalyakara Marma, Pramana is 1 angula, and numbers are 4. See. So many scholars have told that in the upper limb it is called Bahu. In the lower limb, see, it corresponds to the region of the femoral artery. And see, femoral artery is such an important artery as far as the trauma management is concerned, because the rupture of femoral artery occurs more in a motor vehicle accident. And if what happens, suppose in a motor vehicle accident, the car goes and hit an object, it's a head-to-head collision, and the steering comes down. Usually what happens that it fractures the pelvis and also the femoral artery. And what happens that if a rupture to the femoral artery occurs, death will occur within 5 minutes. Here I would like to take the quotation of Ashtanga Hridaya, where he has given specific lakshana of each Marmadikata. That is the Samanya or the Samanya lakshana of a Sandhi Marma Abhigada, Asti Marma Abhigada, Damani Marma Abhigada, Sira Marma Abhigada is given. So that is specific to that structure. So in the Damani Marma Abhigada, he has given Raktam Sa Shabda Phenoshnam Damanistam Vichetasa. So Raktam, if an injury to the Damani Marma occurs, that is main artery, if it is ruptured, Raktam Sa Shabda Phenoshnam. It doesn't mean that there will be a sound when the Damani is ruptured, but he has given Sa Shabda Phena Ushna, frothy and hot blood. He has mentioned those terminologies to indicate the severity of that rupture or the severity of that gush of blood that happens when a major vessel or major artery is ruptured. Raktam Sa Shabda Phenoshnam Damanistam Vichetasa, when a Damani Marma is injured. So here, though this is not a Damani Marma, here Damani Marma only Vagbhata is classified. Here, Uru Marma Vaikilya Marma is the Sira Marma because most Damani Marma Susura is accounted in the Sira Marma only. Here, a Sira, that is the main blood vessel, is getting injured. That is in the center of the Uru, means it is definitely the femoral artery. And one more common logical assumption you will have to make. When it comes to thigh and all, thigh is a very fleshy structure. However lean the person is, while dissecting, you see, once you remove the skin and you see the superficial fascia or deep fascia, it is a very fleshy structure. Every fleshy structure will have a very high vasculature. Okay, so that is a common theory which you have to put into your practice while suturing or while approaching a wound on the cheeks or on the buttocks or on the thigh. Okay, but that will be different in the case of a nape of neck. The nape of neck is not so fleshy, so that differentiation you should have while approaching various wounds in different parts of the body in your clinical practice. And here in the upper limb, Bakwi, the same this thing, and it has to be the brachial artery. The subclavian artery continues as an axillary artery. Axillary artery extends from the outer border of the first rib and the lower border of the teres major muscle. Axillary artery is marked in yellow, and axillary artery continues as a brachial artery. And brachial artery supplies the major part of the arm, and it divides into, bifurcates into radial artery and the ulnar artery. You have to consider it as an injury to the brachial artery. Okay, and next is the Lohitaksha Marma and Urvya Urdhvam Adho Vangsha, Urvyam Urdhvam, that is located above Urvi. Adho Vankshana Sandhi, below the Vankshana, that is below the Vankshana Sandhi and above Urvi. And in the Urumula, that is the root of the thigh, is the Lohitaksha Marma. And here also they have to Lohitakshayena Maranam Pakshagatova. Now, what actually is Pakshagata? Here, Pakshagata means any Hatvegam Maridaha Paksham Dakshinam Vamamevaja Karodi Cheshta Dujam Bak Stampamevaja. Here, what Charaga has told that if one of the limb or one of the sides of a body is getting what you call, it is what you call turning the motion of that movement of that side is ceasing. It is stopping. You can call it as Pakshagata. So there may be many reasons in modern medicine. So that is what Charaga is told. One Paksha or one side or one limb is getting affected. Okay. And see, similarly, it is also located below the axilla and the upper arm. That is Urvyam Urdhvam. This sloka is you have to study separate, and you have to study Urvyam Urdhvam above Urvi, Adho Vankshana Sandhi, that is below Vankshana Sandhi, Urumule, that is in the Urumula, root of thigh, is situated Lohitaksha. And it is a Shaka Marma, Sira Marma, Vaikilyakara Marma, and Pramana is Ardhangula, and what you call number 4. And see here, you can correlate this with the contents of the femoral triangle. Okay, correlate with the contents of the femoral triangle. And in the upper limb with the axillary artery and median nerve. Why I wrote axillary artery with median nerve is that, see, you have, while dissecting, you will see the lateral root and the lateral cord and the medial cord of the brachial plexus. They contribute to the median nerve, and you see that the lateral root and the median root, they both lie on the axillary artery like this. Okay, like so if it is affecting the axillary artery, definitely it will affect the median nerve. So Pakshagata means you cannot consider only one structure. That is, again, I am going to what I told in the introductory remark what Susura has told. Every marma is a confluence of Mamsa, Sira, Sandhi, Asti, and all those. Here, directly, it does Shonidakshaya means it doesn't mean that only an artery is getting affected. So the surrounding nerves, the surrounding veins, the surrounding musculature will also get affected. But the main cause of death will be due to one specific structure that is getting affected, that we are trying to understand in terms of modern anatomy. Okay. Now, Vitapa. Vankshana Vishnayor Anthare Vitapa. That is located between the Vankshana, inguinal region, and Vrishna, Vitapam. Tatra Shandyam Alpa Shukrata Vabhavati. And an injury to this marma will call Shandatva Alpa Shukrata. Okay. And it is a Shaka Marma, it is a Snayu Marma, it is a Vaikilyakara Marma, and its Pramana is 1 angula, and it is 2 in number. And Vankshana, there are some terminologies in Ayurveda which we have to understand contextually. Vankshana Sandhi is told. Kaksha Vankshana Dashaneshu Ulugala. In Ulugala Sandhi classification, they have to Vankshana. There we have to take Vankshana as hip joint. Apart from that Vankshana, we can also understand in this context as a point where, or the region where the thigh joins the trunk. So certain terminologies in Ayurveda have to be understood contextually. And here I would rather tell or describe Vankshana as the inguinal region. Okay. And it is a classification I told, and definitely it refers to contents of the spermaticon. And here one frequently asked question is there, why only spermaticon? What happens in the case of the female? So this is given as a proof that Marma Sharira has been propagated, or it has been postulated to combat the emergencies during the warfare. Necessarily, it is not like that. You can also go for a what you call interpretation in the what you call to the female subjects also, or to the female gender also. Many pelvic diseases related to pelvis also you can correlate to that. Okay, and this is another last marma, that is a Kakshadara marma, and Kakshadare Pakshagata. So Kakshadara is homologous to Vita marma in lower limb. An injury causes Pakshagata. It's a Shaka marma. It is a Snayu marma. Vaikalekara. Pramana is 1 angula and number is 2. And this is the location of the Kakshadara marma. And definitely it corresponds. Kaksha means the axilla region. So it can be what you call this marma can also go a little bit posterior to the full axilla region. And definitely it refers to an injury to the brachial plexus. Okay. Now the marma in the current era. Okay. So in the current era, now I have to go through this statement, that is Mamsa Sira Snayuvasti Jalani Pratyekan Chatvari Tani Manibanda Gulfa Samsurdani Paraspara Nibandani Paraspara Gavakshidani Chedi Yer Gavakshidamidam Sharira. So this is a sloka in the Susra Sharira 5th chapter, the 12th sloka, while detailing about the structure called Jala. So Paraspara Gavakshidani Chedi, here Paraspara Nibaddhani, Paraspara Gavakshidani. That is, the entire Sharira is interlinked and interlocked. That is a statement that has been made 5,000 years ago, and that has got explored just 25 years ago. And this is one of the most promising concept, that is this is a book called Anatomy Trains by Thomas Mayes. Now this is available online. You can have you can download this from the net. And what is anatomy train? So the meridians are maps of facial system developed and dissected by prominent anatomist and body worker Tom Mayes. Mayes developed the myofascial meridians as a way of explaining the role of facial system in relation to human structure and function. Mayes' book Anatomy Trains has become a leading resource in the study of facial network, but should be considered in context as the only one way of considering the way a facial network can work. He has coined the term called facial network. And here, Tom Mayes says as a preface to his book, I developed anatomy trains during the 1990s as a game for students to play while I was teaching facial anatomy at the Roff Institute. But when I came to try to teach, all the books you can find put forward the single muscle theory. I began stringing the muscles together through the fascia. The rules are that the connections have to follow the grain in the facial fabric in more or less a straight line without breaks or changing levels. So what is a train? A train consists of a number of compartments linked together and is the engine that is driving the train forward. So here, these are the myofascial meridians that are very elaborately detailed in the book. Okay, so using this technique, now the physiotherapists have developed a new treatment technology called, or a new treatment method, not technology, method called MFR, myofascial release. So a person is coming and telling, I am having frequent pain in the neck. So I have consulted an orthopedician. So he told there is nothing specific with regard to the what we call, with regard to the osteology part, but it is happening frequently. Now, what they are telling is that suppose the pain in the neck will be caused due to a facial inflammation in the gluteal region. So MFR is now being practiced widely, and I had attended a course on MFR. And what not all physiotherapists practices MFR, myofascial release. But what many physiotherapists opine is that when this MFR is done along with your Ayurveda Taila like Murivanna or some other Taila like Mahanarayana Taila, it is found to have double the result. So myofascial release is a modified form of Abhyanga, you can tell, or a modified form of a massage. And why I happen to tell this statement over here is that this myofascial release is actually justifying the concept put forward by Charaka, who told I am not negating the 107 marmas in the body, but the effect of 107 marmas I have concised it to 3 regions. These marmas are definitely interlinked and can definitely cause many injuries that can be easily dealt with Ayurveda practice. So in the current era, you can use it for repetitive strain injury. So repetitive strain injury is happening in many, especially in the case of IT professionals, it is very common because they are all sitting in front of the computer for 10 to 12 hours or sitting in front of the PC or laptop, whatever, for 10 to 12 hours. And they have pain in the jaw, what you call pain in the low, they have low backache, they have pain in the neck region, they have pain in the manibandha, that is a wrist region. And you can easily manage it with the concept of marma, with combined with the principles of modern anatomy. Post-traumatic management, you can apply marma. You can apply marma in the management of fractures and MFR, what I have told, and definitely you have to approach it in a holistic way. And one more point which I wanted to convey to you in between the slides, I could not convey. Now in the Talahridaya marma and all, there is Shonida Kshayena Marana. So almost every author in any language, you take a Malayalam translation, you take an English translation of P.V. Sharma sir or Srikantamurthy sir, they all have told Shonita Kshaya is hemorrhage. It might not be a hemorrhage because I told, the Intrabaste Marma Bigada, when I have discussed with my own teachers and colleagues, is there. It may cause a Srotorodha. Samanya Srotorodha Lakshana, Siriagandhi is told, no? So it can cause a Srotorodha and it can even lead to an impairment in the hemopoiesis also. Because a person who has suffered, if you ask a person who has suffered a stab injury or who has suffered a bullet injury, you tell that it has taken 1 or 2 years for him to return back to a normal life. His entire metabolism is getting affected because it has affected a major marma and he has had severe blood loss. That is a Jivasthana. So Shonita Kshaya necessarily does not mean hemorrhage, though most of the authors agree with it. It can also be due to any impairment or any malfunction of the Raktadhatu also. So I would, this is my take-home message. Marma are vital points that are not only useful in emergency management, you have to approach Marma in a holistic way. So thank you very much. And now I am opening it for the discussion. If you have any doubts with my little knowledge, I'll be able to clear.
The human body is the most complex system ever created. The more we learn about it, the more we appreciate it. It was a remarkable session, sir. We are truly blessed. Thank you, sir. That marks the end of the presenting session. Let's take some time for questions now. Hereby, participants are requested to type your questions in the given chat box. I repeat, participants are requested to type your questions in the chat box.
So one question has come, management of Sadhya Pranahara Marma. See, Sadhya Pranahara Marma, the death happens instantly or within 7 days. So, see the Sabhyapranahara Marma, they have mentioned, I think 19 Sabhyapranahara Marmas. Okay. So, none of the Marma, Shaka Marma come under that except the Shipra Marma, because it is so Shipram Kadachit Ashumarenti. So, Sabhyapranahara Marma is very simple. It depends on the luck of the patient. Definitely, I will use the word luck and the extent of injury and the type of injury. I would always like to quote the case of Steve Irwin. See, Steve Irwin, you all know, was a very famous wildlife photographer and what you call, he was an enthusiast, and he was shooting underwater, and he was actually killed by the stingray. Actually, what happens is that the stingray, the tail of the stingray actually pierced his heart. He pulled that stingray out, and he collapsed on this spot. So here, Sabhyapranahara Marma, Hridayam is a Sabhyapranahara Marma. Now, this is an example of a direct Abhigada to Sabhyapranahara Marma. But in Charagacharya, in Trimarmiya Siddhi, he has approached Hridaya in a different way. He has told that due to Mithya Ahara Vihara, the Hridaya Marma Abhigada will occur, and you have to manage, sorry, not Hridaya Marma Abhigada, Hridroga will occur. And with he has also mentioned the treatment of that. So that is why I am telling Hridaya is he mentioned as a Sabhyapranahara Marma. So definitely it refers to region of heart. But what is the extent of injury and what is the extent of pathology that is occurring? So Susura has mentioned approach Marma mainly physically, especially from the surgical aspect. Whereas Saraga has approached it with like a physician. Okay, so that is why I use the word luck. I don't feel that I use a non-medical term. Depends on the luck and depends on the what you call the extent of the injury, and how easily you are able to, or how fast you are able to take the physician to a hospital for a medical care. That golden hour you say, no? That is the thing. Yeah, and one question is there. Sandhi Abhigada and Marma Abhigada both might have similar symptoms like pain, swelling, difficulty, movement initially over the time. The Sandhi Abhigada can lead to Marma Abhigada, but is there any way of understanding whether the patient has damaged Marma or Sandhi in the initial upper? That is what I was telling. The same question I asked with a few colleagues who are acclaimed practitioners. So what they are telling is that from the Marma point of view, if first the Sandhi is getting affected, if that Sandhi is not, that Abhigada is not properly managed, it will lead to an irrecoverable tissue loss. That is what I told in the example of the fracture of the scaphoid bone. So it will lead to a Marma Abhigada. That is one concept which they have told. And whether how to differentiate between these two. See, most of the, for example, I'll tell you one thing: the knee joint management. Some meniscal tears, and if some ligament gets torn off, you can manage it with Ayurveda practice by giving a support, by applying Levinas, and giving some Marma Abhigada for internal medications like Dhanvantara Kashayam, Mustadi Marma Kashayam and all. But certain ligament tears are there where surgery is inevitable. So that depends on the discretion of the clinician. Okay. That's what I would like to tell. Why Marma Chikitsa is absent in Ayurvedic text? No, it is very clearly told here. I mean, one chapter has actually been allotted by Shankardaya and this thing, and they have very clearly told in Bhagna Nidana. Bhagna Nidana, Bhagna Chikitsa is very clearly detailed, and in each Marma Abhigada they have told all those things. You know, in Ashmari and all, in the subtle form they are told about Marma Chikitsa. Akriyayam Dhruvo Mrityu, Kriyanam Karyavat Samshaya. That's a very few conditions where they have told that even if you do the procedure, if you don't do the procedure also, the fate might be, I mean, it is very critical. So you have to take the consent of the king. They have told in the current era, they have told you have to take the patient consent and inform him properly. So concept of Marma Chikitsa have been mentioned in the subtle form, in a what you call, not directly, but in other form, in all what you call chapters. Sannyasa you take. In sannyasa, you see, it is it is a, you can consider sannyasa as a Marma Abhigada. Shiro Marma Abhigada. Okay.
Sir, actually one more question. Nowadays we have a special marma chikitsa, like pressing that particular vital points for this many matra, and so
Yeah.
how can we differentiate that marma chikitsa from ours?
See
I
that,
don't know. The previous question was related to that. I don't know,
yeah.
but yeah.
There, sir, that is why I was, there is, that is a area where the pramana need to be redefined. See, the pramana sharira is there now. If you ask the practice that I was telling, if you ask the Kalari practitioner, or if you ask a Tamil Marma practitioner, they will say pramana. They are managing it with the depth, with the pressure and the depth of the fingers. Okay. So these three chigusa you can find in Ayurveda chigusa, in Kalari chigusa, and in this Tamil Varma chigusa. There are some similar elements, but the three approaches are different. But one thing is that the basic concept is definitely one thing is this pressure point application is now very much correlated with the MFR, myofascial release. I have already the downloaded book with me. I can just forward you this note because I had attended one course also. And second thing is what you call to revitalize that part. And first, if it is a severe marpavika, especially affecting the bones or joints, they go for immobilization. And then an internal drugs are also given. So very few drugs are there in classical Ayurveda practice. For Bhagna and all, you can take Dhanvantaram Kashayam. In the Kerala practice, I have seen them giving Dhanvantaram Kashayam. Second, I have seen them giving Mustadi Marma Kashayam. The Gandha Taila, Lakshadi Ugulu, like that. Very few yogas are there. And then we have some yogas mentioned in the Susura Samhita also. But most of the yogas using Kalari practice are not available commercially. They are Kalari practice medicines. They are not Ayurvedic combinations necessarily. They are not the Ayurvedic pharmacopoeia. One more question is asked by Dr. Arundhati and Sir Kurcha and Kurcha Shira. I couldn't see the question. Sir Kurcha and Kurcha Shira. We compare them to the plantar and palmar aponeurosis and the apex of the same. Both are fibrous structures, but damage of them shows different symptoms. How can we substantiate this? See, this is the thing. If I need to answer this question, I will have to take the help of modern anatomy. So one is the widened part. So the widened part. That is a kurcha. Kurcha shira is a little bit more the pointed part. So that if a cut occurs in that region, I think it will be a little bit more severe. The pain will, that is why Kurcha Shira, they have told us the Rujakara Marma, even if it Rujakara Marma, practically, I'm not telling the conceptual part. Practically, what we should understand is that even if it heals, the pain will persist. So that is why Kurcha Shira is classified as a what you call Rujakara Marma and Kurcha as a Vaityalikara.
Sir, actually, in the clinical side, even in the degenerative diseases, when the patients get pain or pain in the knee joint, pain in the ankle joint, pain in the tricosandhi, maybe in the hip joint or in the neck, but very rarely they get this pathological condition in the elbow joint. Usually, we don't get any swelling or apart from the injury. You leave that injury part. If any disease due to joint, due to pathological conditions inside our body, it affects mainly knee joint, ankle joint, hip joint, and maybe in the neck cervical, but very rarely in the elbow joint.
Because it's very logical. Compared to the knee and the hip joint, elbow is not an important weight bearing joint. Unless you do some severe physical work, elbow is not a main weight bearing joint compared to the hip and compared to the knee. And with regard to the neck joint, currently we are spending more time in front of the system, and even currently I am sitting on a platform that is not supporting my spine. So our postures are totally different. When it comes to elbow, when we are sleeping or when we are sitting in the car, most of the conditions, the elbow is much more the supportive position. And I beg to differ from your version, madam. Now a number of cases are coming in Kerala clinics and also, especially to Shalya department, with lateral epicondylitis and medial epicondylitis. But I do agree that statistically you will have more cases with regard to the knee and hip joint, because they are the main weight bearing joints. And Agni Karma is widely practiced for these in Kerala, madam. I am not a practitioner of Agni Karma, but Agni Karma is practiced mainly for this elbow joint disorders. Then especially for the lateral epicondylitis and the medial epicondylitis.
Okay.
And it is found to yield good results.
Thank you, sir. An investment in knowledge pays the best dividends. Thank you, sir, for your response, and I thank everyone for the positive interaction.
I would like to call Sanjana to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good morning, one and all. Thank you is the best prayer anyone would say. Thank you is a way of expressing gratitude, humility, understanding, and it is a state of sharing their happiness. I, Sanjana from Daksha Batch, consider this occasion as an honor to deliver the vote of thanks. First and foremost, I express my heartfelt gratitude to our guest speaker, Dr. Vijayanath, Assistant Professor, Department of Rachana Sharira, Government Ayurveda College, Tirupunitura, Kerala. His extraordinary explanation set a perfect inspiration for everybody. We are truly blessed today, sir. Our sincere thanks to Thiru V. Shanmugam, sir, Chairman, Nanda Educational Trust, Sri Nandakumar Pradeep, Secretary, Nanda Educational Trust, Sri Tirumurthy, Secretary, Nanda Educational Institution. And I would like to thank our beloved Principal Ma'am, Dr. M. Kritika, for her unconditional support for this webinar. I would also like to thank Sri Apollo James, Sir, Administrative Officer, Indian Medicine Campus, for his invisible presence and support. I extend my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Vivek Yunani, HOD, Department of Rachana Sharira, Dr. Pragal, Assistant Professor, Department of Rachana Sharira, who had helped in making this webinar a grand success. I thank our various department faculties for their valuable guidance and encouragement in all our efforts. My heartfelt thanks to our organizing team and technical team for giving me this opportunity. Last but not least, I thank all the participants, my dear teachers, seniors, my dear friends, for showing their love and support for this event. I once again thank everyone for making this webinar a great success. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Finest art, music, and other art are the anatomy of humankind, and these art can counter the potentiality and personality. The phenomena of living is made possible due to several types of involved organs and their well coordinated functions. The functioning of heart as a pumping organ being emotionally controlled is astonishing.
The heart pumps blood to almost all of the body's 75 trillion cells. Only the cornea receives no blood supply. But still, the heart doesn't feel what the eye doesn't see.
The oxygen associated with the capabilities of blood pigments, cascading effects of minimal amount of hormones at molecular limits, the process of nerve conduction, memory maintaining capacities of the brain, and of course, the holistic visual perception of eye are all the wonderful inventions of nature towards a process of simple living.
The greatest forces in the human body is the natural drive of the body to heal itself, but that force is not independent of the belief system. Everything begins with belief. What we believe is the most powerful option of all. With the divine blessings from the Almighty, let's end the session with Shanti Mantra.
सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.
Our human body itself has been designed to resist an infinite number of changes and attacks brought about by its environment. The secret of good health lies in successful adjustment to changing stresses on the body. And in toughest times, remember to be like a spinal cord, bend but do not break.
It doesn't matter how old we are, but the love for anatomy is still deep rooted in every heart. We wish everyone a safe and a healthy weekend. Let us all rejoin again with an interesting topic soon. Until then, signing off from Rupika Bhaskar, Tejashri Purtiya, and our entire Ayunandan team, of course, from the Anatomy Lovers. Thank you and take care.